Hello, everybody, and welcome to our third episode in our intelligent automation series. Today, I would love to talk to you about the intelligent automation operating model. And the operating model for me is a key thing to make sure that your intelligent automation initiatives continue on the long run to deliver the benefits and the impact that you want from them. But before we start with that, let's just take a small step back and see what intelligent automation is all about. As we said in our previous episodes, intelligent automation is actually um, a quest for more value-adding work, and it helps actually to automate the four main tasks of a human worker. And first of all, we actually on the left-hand side, we have the execution task, and basically what our hands and our fingers are doing, and that's usually taken up by robots, by robotic process automation, or low-code, smart-code workflow platforms. Now, once we have that basic basis installed, we actually can plug in more intelligent components into that to come up with an intelligent robot. And the first one at the bottom here is actually the language component. By using natural language processing, we can actually enable the computer to start understanding text and speech and take actions based upon them. Second component that we can add on top of it is the vision component, with based on computer vision, and computer vision actually allows us to recognize elements in pictures, in videos, or in digital documents, and again understand what is on there and interpret that. The last dimension is about thinking and learning, where we of course think about machine learning, and actually machine learning allows us that to based on a set of input parameters and historical events to calculate the probability of a future event, and that probability is also shifting because it's based upon our historic events that can also be altered by new events. All of this together actually forms what I call intelligent automation. Okay, now let's go to the operating model. And the operating model is actually something I always compare with this. I have two kids at home. They're still quite young. And in the weekends, we play together, and they have tons of stuff that which they can play with. And I just let them choose what they want to do. We play with the blocks, build a house for half an hour. Then they want to play with the train and so on. They just go from left to right, and I let them do their thing and just join in on them. And that works perfectly fine if you have two or maybe three kids even. But imagine you have 20 of those running around. Well, then I think you get sceneries like this one, where it's total chaos, and it's uncontrolled, right? And actually, you wanna start evolving more towards that picture here, where there's a bit more structure and order, and you know how things are going. And I think the same parallel you can actually draw with intelligent automation. You start up with a few initiatives, two, three, five processes, and you do this ad hoc. The people are busy with it, and that goes fine. But as soon as you start scaling up, uh, well, then there's a clear need to bring more structure and more order into things. Otherwise, it just becomes a chaos, and it will never deliver the benefits you expected from it. Now, as I already said, it's really important to think about this when you start scaling up. Usually, we go into three phases when we do intelligent automation. You start with your proof of concept, see if it's something for you, for your organization, if you can work with this. And then you start moving on to the pilot phase where you go around five, six processes, you automate them, you put them in production, you see how it works, what the results are, and so on. And if you're happy with that, then you really effectively start rolling things out, right? And it's really at that point in time that you should have an operating model ready when you start rolling it out, because then you're talking about 20, 30, 40 processes that you're going to automate, and you should have defined a bit a way of working, an operating model. So at that moment in time, it's really key to get that on paper. Now, watch out! I say put it on paper, and I don't mean write 100 pages on this. There's just a few dimensions which we will touch upon in just a second. that I think you need to consider, and you need to have a thought about it. Now, this could perfectly be written down in like 5 pages, and that's the way you want to work, and that's your operating model. So don't over complexify things, but at least give them a thought to make sure that it's really put down and clear for everybody working on it. Good. So let's have a look at the different dimensions of that. And first and for all, I think that's actually important that you start off with having kind of a strategy vision that clearly sets out, a landmark. Where do you want to go? What's our big objective with intelligent automation? Once you have that, you can actually just go down a level and look at your intelligent automation operating model. Now, the operating model has a few dimensions. The first one is organization, and here the famous center of excellence is always positioned in, which is actually, I mean, your core team that will guide the projects around your intelligent automation, that will do them. Where do you position them? Is it a central team or is it decentralized? And we'll touch upon that in just a second. That's the organization part. Second one is your governance. How will you decide on which process you're going to implement? What are the criteria? Who gets priority over who? When there's a limited number of resources, and so on. Once you get that out of the way and you've determined which process you will automate, you of course have to have a delivery methodology. What are the different steps that I want to take to get a process in production up and running? And once it's up and running, you need a service model, obviously, to support all the processes running in production. If there are incidents, you need to solve them. You need to reporting on them. You need to make sure they keep on running, and so on and so on. And then, of course, you need people to do all of the previous dimensions. Who do you need? What are their responsibilities? And so on. And as last but not least, there's, of course, the technology pillar, where you have to consider what is here the best fit, what technology is the best fit for my organization, for my systems that I have, what is the architecture that I want to set up. So tackling each of these aspects one by one, intelligent automation strategy being the first one, and actually I always compare this one with actually the Matrix. Maybe you've seen the movie, where the main character is offered the choice between the red or the blue pill. And the blue pill, meaning that he just stays in his current state and is not aware of the real world of all the issues and problems that there are, or he takes the red pill and he becomes truly aware of what is actually going on. And I think what you want is that your organization, your stakeholders, take that red pill and really understand what intelligent automation is all about and what the consequences will be. So that they're very very aware of that. Because looking at some insights here, you see that 87% of decision makers and 72% of C-level executives believe the adoption of technologies has been limited by employee resistance. So you want to get that resistance out of the way. You want them to take the red pill, understand what is going, but also go into dialogue and see what it means for them. Because if you look at another research that has been done, and the question was asked, you have your intelligent automation projects, what is the biggest impact for them when running into trouble? Well, insufficient change management. So it comes down to the same thing, right? And we know that 25% or more of people will be impacted by intelligent automation. Now, that's fine, you can deal with that. They're impacted, but have a plan ready. But the most staggering thing about this research was actually that over 40% of respondents didn't know what to do with those people. Now, that's of course a bigger issue that you want to tackle upfront, or otherwise you will have change resistance and you will never achieve the impact and the benefits you have visioned upfront. So think about that and really have a strategy ready to tackle that. And the way I usually approach it is that I look at these 6 dimensions, and I start off with the left side, where it's key to look at first your objectives. What is the larger goal of intelligent automation that you want to reach here? Once you get that clear, try to define some metrics, some KPIs, to make sure you can measure it up and see where you get in the long run. And then consider the implications, right? The consequences that intelligent automation will have on your employees and your stakeholders, and have a plan ready to deal with that. So once you get that all in all defined, you need to look at the implementation side of things. How will you scale up? Usually, what we do at lots of our clients is we start small, and of course we start scaling up. But determine as well how you will scale up. Is it department per department, country per country? There's ample of possibilities. Just make sure you kind of have a plan ready for that. And then you can start informing your stakeholders and addressing at regular time intervals with the adequate message, and bring along that plan that you have created there in the past, and make sure that you can answer the questions they will have, because they will have them. And lastly, of course, you need to make sure that there is business accountability. Make sure that you pull in the business stakeholders, put KPIs on their plate, so to say, because if they don't have an incentive to support this initiative, then it will never fly. They don't have an incentive to bring you ideas on what can be automated to get and grab those efficiencies and be more effective. They don't have an incentive on that. Things will be very slow to progress. So try to think about these dimensions and act upon them, and that really sets the basis to go further. So that's your strategy dimension. Once you get that flying, you need to look at your operating model, obviously. And the first one is all about organization. So the famous center of excellence, what you read a lot about. And that's actually the center of excellence is your core team that will support your intelligent automation initiatives. And basically, you have a few options there. One is that you position that team, that center of excellence, as really a centralized unit that sits in the middle of all your business units, and is the place to go. Um, Other option is that you do it decentralized, where you say, okay, you need a business unit. I have a small center of excellence, and they just make sure that they talk to each other to make sure you're a bit aligned on standards and so on. But what we usually see in practice is that we move always to kind of a hybrid model, where you have centrally that core team that makes sure you have your standards ready, your way of working that's defined, that you have reusable modules and so on, and you have a few, on the bigger business units, you have a few people there that are as well specialized in it, but are closer to the business and can capture the needs and can do the intelligent automation projects with them in closer collaboration. But these are, I mean, the few options that you need to consider when you're rolling out your initiative, basically. A second dimension is the governance and the pipeline, basically, that you want to build up. Let's first have a look at the pipeline. I think once you're out of your pilot phase and you make a bit of marketing on what you're doing with intelligent automation, normally you see ideas are flowing in, right? And you'll have to prioritize them, your pipeline. What shall I treat now? What won't I treat? What will I treat later? And for this, usually a simple frame like this, mapping benefits versus implementation time or complexity is already a good way to start with. And obviously, you want to be in the top left quadrant when there's high benefits and low time or complexity of implementing them. So this is a nice way to choose and to sort your pipeline, basically. But I think one consideration I wanted to give here is with regards to benefits. Don't only consider money as a benefit. There are other things as well, like delivering better output quality of your process, having a higher speed or faster speed to market, faster processing, need to reduce the need to hire new people when you automate, where the robots really act as an assistant of the people currently doing the process. And last but not least, employee engagement. If you can take away those boring repetitive tasks and make sure that your employees can focus on the more value adding work, well, then your employee engagement obviously is increases, and will be a big benefit in this one. Now, once you get that prioritized, you need to make sure that you have a bit of governance, right? Um, For us, we see that in kind of three tiers, where we have a steering committee that really spearheads the program and ensure that the business accountability is there, you know. And then I think technical counsel is definitely something you need, you know, if you want to make sure that you don't automate two times, three times, four times the same thing, but you have reusable models, well, you need some kind of standards, working principles, and best practices on how you will do things on technical side. And of course, as a counterpart, you also have your business counsel. It's your go-to part where you see if okay what are the things that I'm gonna automate here, does that make sense? Are these processes stable enough, or will they change soon or not? It's also where you can foster a culture of innovation and change in your organization. So it's really key to have all of these three dimensions somehow represented in your organization to make sure you're progressing along the way fine. And of course, I mean, progressing means measuring, right? You want to measure how you're doing, how you're progressing. And I think for us, there's two dimensions here. First one is on the business side, like opportunities identified, savings achieved. Try to get some KPIs really on the business side to pull them into the debate to make sure they're accountable for things. And then you also put down some KPIs for your center of excellence, of course. Number of robots implemented, savings achieved, business satisfaction, but also on the more technical side, like how much assets are being reused in a program, how much assets do we have in our library, and so on. So you can really measure the way your center of excellence is performing. Okay, on to the next few things in our operating model, and I'm going to take them together here: delivery model and service model. And for delivery model, actually, once you have here, you have the picture here on the left side. It's kind of like all your manual process, and for there you can have candidates that you can automate. So that's your pipeline management, which we discussed just a few slides ago. Now, once you have your processes identified that you want to go and automate, then you start really delivering them. So then you go into design, build, test, user acceptance testing, deployment. And I mean, if you're a bit used to working in IT, then you will see here that this is just a plain delivery model of your application development. That's very similar. So don't my advice here: don't reinvent the wheel. Just go and look how your application development currently is doing, and pick out the components that you want to keep and see. Okay, maybe here and there you need to make a few changes. Huh? Because for intelligent automation, you will work with applications that don't have a development environment and acceptance environment. How will you deal with that? That are things you need to consider. But I mean, for 80-90%, look at just the way you're doing it now in application development, and you can work from there. And of course, whenever these projects are running in production, you need to support them. You need a service model. How will you deal with release management? Because obviously, if your current IT team releases 6 times per year, well, that doesn't really fit into the mindset of intelligent automation, right? We can release every week, so to say. So we're much more agile. How will you deal with that? If there are problems and incidents in production, how will we deal with this? And so on and so on. So set up your service model as well. And again, here, usually these things are already elaborated for the application development. So have a look at those and don't reinvent the wheel. People are of course key in every story. So make sure you have the right people on board in your center of excellence. The key people there are definitely your center of excellence lead, who has the responsibility for the COE and ensures that that there's continuous improvement of the performance are being followed up, and the pipeline is being filled and being worked on. You have your business analysts that will talk to your business people, analyze the processes that should be automated, and make sure that they hand over that information to the developer who will actually create the intelligent automation robots. Usually, the developer is more on a ad hoc basis, supported by an infrastructure engineer that will set up the right IT infrastructure where the robots can run, as well as a solution architect to see how the IT architecture needs to be set up to make sure that the robots can access all the applications and all the rights that they need to be. And then last but not least, and they're not really in the COE, I would say, but they're very closely related, is the automation champion, I would say, or champions. And there are people that are really driving the adoption of automation in your company, that are really spreading the word and catalyzing the people to join the initiative. And then, of course, you have your sponsor on the other hand that makes sure that you have the budget and the resources to do all this, to make sure that intelligent automation is a top strategic priority of your organization. And then moving on to the last but not least, technology, which is of course very key here as well. And I think big advice here is there's a lot of things on the market. Explore a bit, or ask for assistance of people that have a bit of experience in this, and make sure you have the right fit with your organization here. Next to that, besides picking the right tool, it's of course making sure that you manage also your licenses in a cost-effective way, because they can be a big chunk of the money you pay in the long run. So manage those appropriately. And all of those dimensions actually, for me, they contribute to reaching the end goal. And for me, that is really building a data-driven, intelligent enterprise. Now, what do I mean by that? Um, is actually, if you look at organizations today, here on the left-hand side of the picture, here on the left-hand side, if you look at organizations today, the bulk of our activities are actually involved in transaction processing, a bit less in reporting and compliance, and a few people are actually working on developing insights and doing actions based upon those insights. But now with the adoption of RPA, low code, BPM, I think automation here can be a catalyst to narrow down the time we are spending at transaction processing and really increase our productivity efficiency on that dimension. And then once we have that optimized state and we add more intelligent components to it, then actually we can come to the data-driven intelligent enterprise, where there's actually real-time insights in how our organization is performing, and we can, based on those real-time insights, we can directly do actions to impact that and to improve those things. But that means that our time spent on transaction processing should even be further minimized. Our time on reporting and compliance can be minimized, but we spend a lot more time looking at the insights that intelligent automation can deliver to us, and taking the adequate actions based upon that. So our people are really moving up that value chain, so to say, and are really focusing on their value adding tasks of delivering insights and taking actions upon that. I think then we really come to the data-driven intelligent enterprise. Which I think is a future state that we really have to achieve in order to actually survive in the market. And that leads me to the last slide actually of our third episode. So if you have any questions on the operating model, or just want to have a chat about a few things, feel free to reach out. I hope you enjoyed it, and looking forward to meeting you. Bye bye.